Ooh, that's a badass takeoff. What's up everybody, Ryan here with the Max Afterburner channel. I'm a former F-15E combat fighter pilot, F-16 Thunderbird pilot. Today we're gonna be breaking down the SU-57 flying in an air show in China. I've flown over 80 air shows around the world in my life, so I'll be breaking down move by move what I'm seeing from a maneuverability perspective, a thrust perspective, a G perspective, and just overall my thoughts of what I think about the SU-57, its combat capabilities, how it would go up against Western fighters, and I'll talk about all that at the end, so definitely stay for the end of the video. Also of note, this bad boy is a T-50, so it's a trainer version of the Su-57. Most likely, Russia doesn't want to risk losing the one or two, the functioning Su-57s that they have in an air show. And all it takes is one wrong over-the-top call, you're a little bit too low, and you smack this thing into the deck. They can't risk that, because most likely they're trying to sell this jet to China. Now, it is the T-50, so spectators up close have shown that this jet in particular, at this air show, it's got some gaps between the panels, it's got some fasteners that aren't exactly flush with the fuselage, so most likely not a stealth aircraft. This is not one you'd want to take into combat, but Russia knows that. They don't care. They're out there flying air shows to music. They're doing loops to music. They just want to look cool. So at the end of the day, this is just showing off the thrust and the maneuverability to China to see if they'd like to get in on some of the orders of the Su-57, which would then help crank back up the supply chain and solve some of the supply chain issues that Russia currently has. With that said, let's dive in. We'll go with a wider angle view at the beginning, and at the end, we'll do some closer ups so we can really see the deflection of the control surfaces, and I'll talk about all that. Oh, and if you're wondering, am I trying to look like Harvey from Suits? Of course I am. So right there, you get a really nice view of the top of the Su-57. I gotta hand it to them. This is just my personal opinion looking at this from an aviator perspective. This is a good looking aircraft. It's huge, it's like a tennis court, and F-15E, first love of my life, so I actually love tennis court shaped jets, but this thing is massive. And when you look at it, it's obviously got a radar in the front, in the nose. All fighter jets are pretty much built around the radar, and you could argue the engines as well, but the radar in the front is gonna be for an offensive type perspective. And then if you look in the back, it's got that radar in the back as well. It's some sort of radar. I mean, that's unverified, but if you look at it, there's no real other reason to have that back there. It doesn't actually look cool. It looks like a big wanker, as we would call it. So it's not for looks. So it's definitely for some sort of defensive or potentially rearward offensive capability. And again, getting a good radar up to altitude is what fighter jets are pretty much made for. All the other stuff is made for air shows, which, let's be honest, is just as important. Oh yeah. And there you go, that is a muscle climb. So that muscle climb maneuver is what you'll see out of the Thunderbird solos as they go up and they show off the thrust to weight ratio of the aircraft. So the fact that Su-57 can just point straight up like that, just vertical like a skyscraper, and go straight up after a takeoff is incredibly impressive. So the thrust to weight ratio on this thing, they're showing it off. They're hanging it all out there saying, hey, we got some cojones and we can go straight up. Can you? It's a you-know-what measuring contest, and they pretty much just won versus anybody except probably the Raptor. I think the Raptor can compete right with that and do the exact same thing. So in a dogfight, for the record, I choose the Raptor. That's where I'd want to be. Nice over the top maneuver. Again, just squaring that corner, he's going to dish it out. Yeah, why not? That was a nice little flip turn, so I'm assuming not full deflection of the ailerons there. It'd probably go a bit faster. To me, that looked like just a nice, gentle, I'm gonna go the other direction, but I wanna make it look cool, which is again what you would do in air shows as well, just to show off the performance. Why not show off an aileron roll prior to turning in the other direction? But real nice and smooth. Honestly, this thing's looking like a buttery jet to fly. Like I'm thinking they've got some caramel leather on the seats and it's just buttery. It's a buttery feel. It looks like a nice, smooth jet to fly. And with the F-15E flying that thing, how it was a bit of a Cadillac, a bit bigger, the fuselage itself kind of acts like a wing because it's so big, which is contrasted to smaller jets like an F-16 where you're essentially in a rocket ship. So it doesn't really want to fly. The F-16 doesn't really want to fly as much as the F-15E does, just from a stability perspective. And when I look at this jet, the fact that the entire fuselage is essentially just a continuation, it's one big wing, to me, it's just going to make this thing buttery. Wow. Oh, there there's the Top Gun maneuver right there. Yep, that's not something you want to see if you're in an F-14. That'll make you want to have your brown flight suit with you if you see that move. And again, that nose authority, being able to spin like that, is not something you're going to see in 4th generation fighters. So your best hope in a dogfight like that is just to kind of park it to the side, go up, try to maintain energy, maybe some height above the Su-57, let him do his thing, do his breakdancing, cool story, bro, and then try to roll in behind him. So really it's about saving that distance, because a move like that, and we'll see more, I'm assuming, coming up, like a Cobra type maneuver, we'll see that coming up. That was more of like a static leaf or a falling leaf, where he's just like, come at me, bro. What do you got, little F-16? And you're like, I don't know. Hold my beer, watch this. So at the end of the day, this thing is creating maneuvers that are not really seen in 4th generation fighters, which is pretty awesome. Again, this and the Raptor, as far as a maneuverability perspective, from what I'm seeing so far, very, very similar. Using that 3D thrust vectoring, the asymmetric thrust. And again, with this jet, you've got the engines so far apart. If you look at the Raptor, they're tighter, so less of an ability for the engines to kind of help spin the Raptor around. With this thing, you've essentially got like the state of Tennessee in between these engines. It's freaking massive. So being able to plug one in, maybe do some asymmetric thrust in this, again, not to mention those huge control surfaces, but the control surfaces, while big, they're not that big. So you're gonna need some of that asymmetric thrust from these engines to get it to spin like that. So whether that's worked into the flight control computer system to kind of help with that thrust advantage from one way to the other, or if it's just the pilot actually doing it himself, remains to be seen. I would assume it's probably the pilot doing it himself, just from a maintenance perspective and all the different complications that would come from actually some of the thrust being altered in its spin, but hey, you never know. Beefy. Yeah, that looks good. I bet this is a fun air show to watch. Looking at the vertical capability, and then if you went up with him in this situation and then he just turned and pointed at you, I mean, that'd be a hard thing to defend against. There's more falling leaf. Again, he can make a BFM mistake, a basic fighter maneuver mistake. Oh, went up, got a little bit too much energy here, but then he can just turn and point. So it's a very forgiving aircraft in a dogfight, for sure. Yep, and that's the classic falling leaf right there. He's kind of rolling it on his side a little bit there as he kind of tucks it into the turn. Nice. Yeah, the ability to just flat plane the jet like that, like what you just saw him do, basically moving forward and then stops and then turns and points at you. I mean, that point right there, the perspective, that's a similar perspective of what you might get in an actual 4th generation fighter going up against this thing. I'm not saying they're gonna win every time. I mean, there's so many different factors. Lose sight, lose the fight, recency of their last flight. I mean, this airshow pilot right here is super well versed in flying this aircraft in an airshow environment. But when it comes to combat pilots, they're not gonna be as proficient in maneuvering this thing. They're just not gonna have the flight hours. But if you go up against this guy, it's your unlucky day. Could be a bad day. What would I say if I was in a dogfight against him? Not on my watch. Not on my watch, bro. Gotta give him everything you got, like in a dogfight. Never stop fighting. Even if something's maneuvering like this in front of you, doing that funky chicken, you gotta just keep fighting it. You can't stop. So there you go again, a lot of maneuverability as far as stopping energy and then having the thrust to power out of that. That's one of the biggest things, is having the thrust to continue to power out. Because once you stop all your momentum, now you're either gonna fall or you're gonna move. It's gonna depend on how much thrust you have. It's real nice. Yep, real nice into the vertical. Again, a merge like that and he goes into the vertical. Yeah, your best hope is do some pilot stuff. Make him lose sight. There you go, he's basically stopping. You can see the horizontal stabs there dancing, stabilizing the jet. But again, I think it's a real stable platform anyways, just on the shape of the fuselage. And he's just like, he's helicoptering above the ground right now. He's basically doing a high alpha with tons of thrust and a lot of maneuverability, plus the stability, which is really cool. It's a good combination. All right, yep, nice little J-hook turn there. Yeah, J-hook's nice, just kind of gets you turned in the other direction, and this thing can do it in, you know, squared on a dime, which is beautiful. It's always a nice benefit. Yep, nice pass and review. Again, good looking paint job. It's funny, Top Gun Maverick used the ambiguous country with the same exact paint job. We're not gonna say it's Russia, but yeah. And you got this guy who got so excited he dropped his camera. I get it, man. Planes, chicks dig planes, it's cool. Yep, there you go, straight up into the vertical, real nice. I haven't seen a traditional Cobra yet. I'm assuming that's gonna come here soon. Again, that over the top right there is crucial. Even with a jet this maneuverable, believe it or not, you could put yourself in a position where you're having a bad day, you're misjudging, misanalyzing altitudes, and you could put yourself in a position like the Mountain Home F-16 pilot did, where he pulled over the top 1,000 feet low and ended up having to eject. That guy was like 2 inches shorter after that ejection, so not something to take lightly, even in a super maneuverable jet like this, and that Mountain Home pilot can tell you why. Yep, nice turn up into the vertical there. Again, kind of a reposition move. That's an Airshow move. I like it. You know, getting the front, getting the back perspective. And then there you go, boom, stopping in space. That's essentially like what I would call a maneuvering Cobra, a Couverture's bell. Again, stopping in the middle of the air and just being like, what do you got? What are you gonna do, 4th generation fighter? This is when you want the Raptor bubs out there making it rain. Okay, gear coming down. And again, that Cobra maneuver there, that is the bread and butter of what I think this platform is showing off right now. Because ultimately you can't really show off the long distance missile shots that maybe this is, you know, able to do, that they're telling the Chinese government behind closed doors. What this is showing, hey, you get yourself into a dogfight with who knows what. I mean, China's obviously thinking of Western threats, but you know, they might be thinking of some other threat. And they might be, hey, maybe one day we need to put North Korea in its place. I don't know, who knows? They want to be able to have a jet that's super maneuverable for a lot of different reasons. It's also a national pride thing. I mean, look at all the air shows that are flown around the world. It makes you proud to see your country fly something that's got a ton of maneuverability and can be featured at least as the bad guy in Top Gun Maverick. I mean, maybe another generation, this will be featured in Top Gun Maverick 3. Dude, he is wrapping it in real low for this landing. Yeah, again, different flight profile. See, this photographer got too excited again. Come on, hold it together, photographer. He's the guy who passes out when a mouse walks in the room. Wow, that is a really tight rollout on landing. Wow, yeah. That is an incredible landing. I mean, that's not something that you're gonna do every day. Drogue chute comes out. Okay, so that tight of a rollout and touchdown on landing, you're not gonna see that from combat pilots flying this thing, at least in my opinion. They're not gonna be that precise with this jet. Now again, having flown a Thunderbird jet myself over and over and over again, you become one with that aircraft. You have so much flight time. You're so used to maneuvering it around and making it an extension of your body that it's just a whole different realm of flying. Now I've seen the differences between combat squadrons and then having the time behind the stick in a Thunderbird squadron. You get so much more proficient at maneuvering and landings and all the little things that are just stick and rudder flying when that's all you're doing. You know, it's kind of intuitive, right? So the fact that he rolled out like that right over top of the runway and touched down, I don't think you're gonna see that from the combat squadrons. That's a Sierra Hotel landing where he's showing off, and he should be. That's his job in this situation. And then the drogue chutes coming out, it's just kind of silly to me. The weight that's needed for those drogue chutes and the compartments, you know, the complexities of that, there must be some limitation with these brakes. They should make the brakes better so they don't need the drogue chute. So, I mean, the Raptor doesn't need the drogue chute, but at the end of the day, this is a good aircraft from what I can tell. I mean, you gotta hand it to him. The maneuverability is pretty freaking sweet. So looking at it myself from just an aviator perspective, I'd love to fly it. I'd love to fly against it. I'd love to take an F-16 and give it my best. At the end of the day, real nice maneuvering. What is its combat capability? That remains to be seen. I'll do a follow-on video where I do some reactions to the control surfaces of the Su-57, so be on the lookout for that. But ultimately, real nice job. I think they made a spectacular airshow aircraft. Combat capability remains to be seen. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate you being here. Hey, if you would help me grow the channel, I would really appreciate it. It turns out like 80% of the people that watch my videos, I've got millions of views on videos and only like 10% are subscribed. So if you would subscribe and we can get that more to like a 50% mark or something like that, it would really help me grow the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, hey, I've got a podcast as well. So it's called The RB Show. You can find it anywhere you get your podcast. You can find it here on YouTube. Please check that out. That'd mean a lot. We'll see you on the next video, and I will link to that closer up video of the control surfaces of the Su-57. Thanks so much for watching. Most of all, have a great day.